Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Abhineet Shukla and with me is Renuka bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India and Asian Development Bank signed $300 million loan to strengthen and improve primary health care in urban area of 13 states. India and Argentina agreed to broaden cooperation in the field of defense, space, oil, gas and health. Two-day 13th ASEM Summit to begin virtually on Thursday. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu to lead Indian delegation. United States includes Taiwan among invitees to its upcoming Democracy Summit. India, UK and Japan also invited for the December 9-10 virtual summit. Sweden's parliament approves Magdalena Andersson's name to become country's first female prime minister. And in badminton, PV Sindhu, Kidambi Srikanth and B. Sai Praneeth sail into the pre-quarters of Indonesia Open in Bali. As India created history by administering over 100 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011 2397 8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India and the Asian Development Bank have signed $300 million loan to strengthen and improve access to comprehensive primary health care in urban areas of 13 states. These states are Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Haryana, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Telangana and West Bengal. Finance Ministry said this will benefit over 256 million urban dwellers, including 51 million from the slum areas. The agreement was signed between Additional Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Rajat Kumar Mishra and Country Director of Asian Development Bank's India Resident Mission, Takeo Konishi. Speaking on the occasion, Rajat Kumar Mishra said that the program supports the key health initiatives, Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centers and Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission by expanding availability and access to quality primary healthcare services, particularly for vulnerable populations in urban areas. The 6th round of Foreign Office consultations between India and Argentina were held on Wednesday in New Delhi. Secretary East in MEA, Riva Ganguly Das, led the Indian delegation, while Argentine delegation was led by Deputy Foreign Minister Pablo Tetamanti. Reviewing the multifaceted relations between India and Argentina, which were elevated to strategic partnership in 2019, both sides reaffirmed their resolve to broaden ongoing bilateral cooperation across a host of areas of mutual interest, including defense, space, nuclear energy, minerals, conventional and renewable energy, oil and gas conventional and shale, health and pharma, agriculture, Ayurveda, development cooperation, science and technology. The two sides identified steps to strengthen trade and investment, market access for more agricultural as well as pharmaceutical products, cooperation in information technology sector and deepening people-to-people ties. Both countries recalled their mutual assistance during COVID and reiterated their joint resolve to continue mutual cooperation in their fight against the pandemic and post-pandemic recovery. Both sides exchanged views on various regional and global issues and decided to strengthen the existing coordination in multilateral fora. External Affairs Ministry said the consultations were held in a friendly, warm and cordial atmosphere. Both sides agreed to hold the next consultations at a mutually convenient date in Buenos Aires.
The 13th ASEM Summit will be held virtually from tomorrow. The theme of the 2-day summit is Strengthening Multilateralism for Shared Growth. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will lead the Indian delegation for the summit, which is expected to see participation from all 51 member countries and ASEAN and European Union. This summit will also mark the 25th anniversary of the ASEM process. The 13th summit is being hosted by Cambodia as ASEM chair. Along with opening ceremony, Vice President will also participate in the first plenary session as well as the retreat session of the summit. ASEM is a platform for the countries in Asia and Europe to exchange views on regional and global issues and strengthen cooperation on a wide range of areas emanating from its three pillars: political and security, economic and financial, and socio-cultural. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on creating next-generation urban infrastructure. The participants are Sharat Kohli, economic analyst, and Ruchika Chitravanshi, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be laying the foundation stone for Noida International Airport tomorrow. This airport is in line with PM's vision towards boosting connectivity and creating a future-ready aviation sector. This is one of the many infrastructure projects that the government has been talking about. Various ministers have mentioned various projects. We'll talk all about them. But let us start with this aviation connectivity that is coming into Uttar Pradesh that will be inaugurated by the Prime Minister tomorrow. Dr. Kohli, can you tell us a little bit about the project and its significance for India and the state as well?
I think extremely strategic project which has been on the files for almost 2 decades now, and finally we are seeing the light of the day. This is going to be Asia's largest airport. If we talk of the Jewar airport, we lay the foundation of tomorrow. This is not just going to cater to the western Uttar Pradesh, but also it will be the largest airport in Asia. So I think the entire North India, and we already know that Delhi International Airport, which is currently one of the busiest airport in the country, in fact, it is the busiest airport in the country, is already providing a lot of support to aviation sector. And I think this would be like a shot in the arm for Northern India, where people from Haryana, people from Uttar Pradesh, people from Delhi, people from Rajasthan, they will all be accessible as far as this airport is concerned. And we all know that the airport is already connected by a very, very state-of-the-art modern expressway. And I think this is going to really be economic booster, I would say, for this part of the country. I think we already have the contractor engaged from one of the finest airports in the world in Europe. They've already signed up the contract, and I think by 2024, we should see the first plane fly, Ruchika, from this airport.
That will be amazing. One of the other great things is that this will be India's first net zero emissions airport as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it is going to feature a whole multimodal transit hub? What does it mean for India to be on the logistics map of the world?
If we look at the Indian aviation industry, I mean, it is the total market size of Indian aviation industry. As of July 2021, the last available number, it was $16 billion. And India is the 10th largest civil aviation market in the world. And it is expected that with these kind of measures, with Jewar kind of airport and with 137 airports functional, I think India by 2024 can become the third largest civil aviation market in the world, which will be a big leap for the country. And I think this airport, which is going to be launched tomorrow as far as the foundation stone is concerned, I think would serve as a milestone in that direction. The entire infrastructure of the Jewar airport is likely to be built in a manner that there is going to be no greenhouse gases or emissions which will be let out in the atmosphere, as is the case with so many other infrastructure which has been built around the world, not just in India. And we just saw at the COP26 conference, there were countries struggling to reach zero emissions. They were struggling to reach that 1.5 degrees Celsius target. So I think initiatives like these go a long way in achieving the target where these greenhouse gases are minimized, where the fossil fuels are minimized. And I think the infrastructure is being built in a manner that it will probably be a zero emission airport, which will be very different from rest of the airports in the country because their infrastructure is not as new and as modern as this one is coming up.
And it will probably set the tone for the future projects also to come up. For the people living in Delhi, it is not just the people living in Delhi, those in Noida, Ghaziabad, Aligarh, Agra, Faridabad and neighboring areas. Everybody is going to be served by this airport. And as we understand, the first phase is being done with a cost of over 10,000 crore rupees. And the groundwork, such as the land acquisition and rehabilitation, all that has been completed. Moving on from aviation, Dr. Kohli, the Road Transport and Highways Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, has said that the construction of 65,000 kilometers of national highways is being done under the Bharatmala Phase 1 and 2. So where do we stand with this particular project right now? And what is the importance of this project for India's logistics sector? How well will it connect us? When do you see it coming to fruition?
The benefits and the mileage that we gain out of these miles, if I put it down in a bit of a philosophical tone, is unmatched. I mean, in economics, every single rupee spent on road has a 8 times multiplier effect. I mean, you can imagine the kind of benefit this is going to provide. And before I talk on the highway, which is an absolutely marvelous thing being done by this government, I must add to what I said about the aviation, because they are both interrelated also, by the way, which is that airport is not just an airport. An airport is an economic system around which a whole economy comes up. We saw the Delhi airport, you've got an aero city, you've got shopping area, you've got apartments which have come up near. I mean, people identify their townships, their areas by airport, that we live near the airport. This is a road which goes to airport, so why don't you develop a mall there and so on. So I think a whole economy comes up. Anyway, coming back to the roads, I think the way you distinguish a developing economy from a developed economy is infrastructure. For our listeners who have traveled abroad or who have probably seen the pictures on various video mediums, you will see the difference between the developing and developed country. There is one difference. The moment you step out into a developed country is the infrastructure. The moment you find very neat and clean roads, very well-connected towns, a perfect train system, a perfect aviation system, perfect facilities on the roads. There's a telephone call. There is a telephone available. You can contact anyone. They are properly toll paid, those electronic tolls where you just pass through. I think India is on the way in that direction. If we say we are going to be $5 trillion economy, first and foremost thing that we need to have a sound infrastructure, especially after the pandemic, when China faced the ire of the world. China had to face the wrath of the world because a lot of companies, a lot of investments which were in China have started looking for an alternate. It's called the plus one China, or they have started looking for an additional domicile for themselves as far as their business or investment is concerned. And I think with this infrastructure coming up in India, because some of the investors in the past, when they used to consider India as an investment destination, the first thing that stuck in their mind was, we don't have enough infrastructure. If we want to transport goods from, let's say, Delhi to Mumbai, it is very expensive. If we do it by air, by train, it's a lot of headache. You want to make it reach the destination, then it is offloaded, and so on and so forth. Various things were said about the Indian infrastructure. I think with government's commitment and government's initiative of this 104 lakh crore, more than that rather, national infrastructure pipeline, by the way, this Bharatmala and the entire road projects being undertaken by the National Highway, the Highway and Transport Ministry and National Highway Authority of India are part of that national infrastructure pipeline. And I think these roads can work wonders. But what you need to see in economics, that the kind of economy which develops around a highway is absolutely unimaginable. And many times the benefit of that road reaches the people who stay around the area or who pass through the area, or people who are in the vicinity of that road. I think it's an excellent initiative. And today we have roads which match America. We used to hear about aeroplanes landing on the highways in America. Today we have aeroplanes landing. Why aeroplanes? You have Hercules-like massive military plane landing on a Purvanchal expressway. I think these things were not talked about in India. And I think we are on the road to become one of the finest economies around the world. And we are here to provide an alternate to China. There's a massive investment, I must tell you, Ruchika, which is waiting to come to India. All that is needed is a perfect infrastructure. All that is needed is the right platform. So many initiatives like ease of doing business have been taken, but infrastructure was one, which is road is a very important, I must say, ingredient of the entire infrastructure serving that is there. So I think it is a great move. So airports, roads, we've been hearing about railway stations being modernized. I think it's just a perfect combination where India can look forward to a very, very bright future in terms of competing with some of the finest and the most developed economies around the world.
The Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, he also talked about how the airports are bursting at their seams because so many people in India are using air travel as a mode of transportation, especially in metros. He has said that we are looking at a possibility of a second airport, not just in Delhi, but they're also thinking of a second airport in Calcutta, adding another in Mumbai. So what do you think of this strategy and how much more do we need to add in terms of more airports in the country? What should we focus on when we are adding this infrastructure?
Well, if we see the count of airports right now, Ruchika, if I'm counting them right, there are about 137 airports, which include about 103 domestic airports and about 24 international airports. And there are, of course, 10 airports which are custom-based airports. I think the Prime Minister said from Hawai Chappal to Hawai Jahaz. I think he wanted a common man to fly. And aircraft and airports should not be only for the elite, for the people who've got deep pockets. In this country of 135 to 40 crore people, why can't every citizen have a right to fly? Why should poor people envy and see, oh, I wish I could have reached Mumbai in 2 hours. Why should I spend 24 hours or 18 hours in reaching Mumbai? With that intention, with that motive, I think the government is trying, and we heard about 2,500 an hour, of course, with the fuel prices fluctuating here and there. Sometimes it becomes difficult to service 2,500 per hour flight. But then the idea of the government is that as more airports come, and when you have a second airport in a country, what happens to the second airport? You could have a second airport for the economy airlines, for the airlines which work at discounted rates, where everybody can fly. So aircraft is an aircraft. I mean, it will make you reach in the same time. But I think it is the intent and the mandate of the government that we should try and make as many people fly, which is why these airports are bursting at seams. I think it will be very rare for you in a city to find people who said he's never seen an aircraft or he's never probably traveled in an aircraft. The count of such people is gradually coming down if you compare from the earlier years. I think it has succeeded, and these second airports have become need of the hour for such a well-populated country like ours. I think these airports definitely are going to be, in terms of the size, in terms of the capacity, they are going to run short, and which is where we need more airports, and those airports are coming in the state of Uttar Pradesh, Ruchika. We now have 5 international airports. I mean, just imagine, a state like Uttar Pradesh, which used to lag behind in terms of its economic development. Today, that state, after Shilanyas of the Jewar airport tomorrow, this will be the 5th international airport in Uttar Pradesh itself. So I think it's a matter of pride for the country. The speed at which the government is pushing the infrastructure reforms and the infrastructure spending, I would like to put on record all my appreciation as an economist. I can understand the economic benefits and the magnifying effect or the multiplier effect of these economic initiatives.
Absolutely, Dr. Kohli. Very well put that it is a booster dose for the economy while the jury is still out on the booster dose vaccine, whether that's required or not. This is certainly a good news as India is also sort of coming out of the pandemic. Obviously, as you very rightly said, India has to overtake China at some point, whole China plus one discussion that is going on globally. All of these investments do put India in good stead in achieving those goals and those objectives. Thank you so much, Dr. Kohli, for joining us today.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back. You're listening to the world news. The 20th meeting of SCO Council of Heads of Government will be held on Thursday in Nur Sultan in virtual format under the chairmanship of Kazakhstan. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will represent India in the meeting. The SCO Council of Heads of Government meeting is held annually and focuses on the trade and economic agenda of the organization and to approve its annual budget. The meeting will be attended by the heads of government of the SCO member states, observer states, Secretary General of the SCO, Executive Director of the SCO Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, RATS, Turkmenistan and other invited guests. India is actively engaged in various SCO activities and dialogue mechanisms in the region as well as other multilateral cooperation within the SCO framework. India and Finland held Foreign Office consultations on Tuesday. Secretary West, External Affairs Ministry Rinat Sandhu and Permanent State Secretary of Finland's Foreign Ministry Matti Antonen led the 11th round of Foreign Office consultations between India and Finland in Helsinki. Both sides discussed progress and direction of bilateral ties. They also discussed the positive trajectory in the bilateral relationship and exchanged views on regional and global issues.
In the United States, the Biden administration has included Taiwan among the 110 invitees to its upcoming Democracy Summit, the State Department announced last night. The move is intended to show solidarity with a key regional partner, but risks angering China. Taiwan was invited to join nations including India, UK and Japan at the December 9th to 10th virtual summit. The online gathering is an event Mr. Biden vowed to host while he was a candidate for presidential election last year, with the goal of rallying like-minded countries around efforts to fight corruption and authoritarianism and advance human rights. The Biden administration has also invited Poland and the Philippines. NATO ally Turkey has not been invited for the summit. The U.S. President Joe Biden announced to release around 50 million barrels of crude oil from strategic reserves in coordination with India and other major global energy consumers like South Korea, Japan and Britain to ease crude oil prices. The coordinated step came as OPEC Plus producers repeatedly ignored calls for more crude production. In this regard, India has already announced release of 5 million barrels of crude oil from its strategic petroleum reserves, saying that pricing of liquid hydrocarbons should be reasonable, responsible, and be determined by market forces. Though China had also promised to be part of this coordinated step, but on Wednesday its foreign ministry spokesman said that China will release crude oil from its reserves according to its needs. On Tuesday, in a press release, India said that it has repeatedly expressed concern at supply of oil being artificially adjusted below demand levels by oil-producing countries, leading to rising prices and negative attendant consequences. Though the release of 5 million barrels of crude is around half of India's daily domestic consumption, it is seen as a symbolic move as oil consumers are willing to band together against OPEC's reign over markets. To ease the retail oil prices at domestic level and to control inflationary pressures, the Government of India had reduced the central excise duty on petrol by 5 rupees and diesel by 10 rupees on 3rd of this month. It was followed by a reduction in VAT on fuel by many state governments. Prime Minister Modi has been consistently reviewing the high petroleum and diesel prices domestically. The government eased the central excise duty despite the high fiscal burden on the government to provide relief to citizens.
Magdalena Andersson has been approved by Sweden's parliament as the country's first ever female prime minister after replacing Stefan Löfven as leader of the centre-left Social Democrats. Sweden is the country never to have elected a woman as national leader before. Ms. Andersson, who is currently finance minister, did not win Wednesday's vote. However, she was elected because under Swedish law, she only needed a majority of MPs not to vote against her. 100 years after Swedish women were given the vote, the 54-year-old Social Democrat leader was given a standing ovation by sections of the parliament or Riksdag. Her election at the head of a minority government followed an 11th-hour deal with the opposition Left Party in exchange for higher pensions for many Swedes. She also secured the support of coalition partner, the Greens, as well as the Centre Party. The Sudanese Prime Minister has announced a review of all appointments that were made during his detention following last month's coup. Abdullah Hamdok, who was reinstated to his post on Sunday, also ordered an end to the dismissals of officials. The Prime Minister is still without a government after being reinstalled in a controversial deal with General Burhan. When the country's military chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, carried out the coup, he dissolved all the country's institutions and sacked many officials, including the heads of state media, public companies and banks. Many Sudanese have demanded an end to military interference in the running of the country and want civilians in charge.
Russia's defense minister, Minister Sergey Shoigu, accused U.S. bombers of rehearsing a nuclear strike on Russia from 2 different directions earlier this month and complained that the planes had come within 20 kilometers of the Russian border. But the Pentagon said its drills were announced publicly at the time and adhered to international protocols. Moscow's accusation comes at a time of high tension with Washington over Ukraine, with U.S. officials voicing concerns about a possible Russian attack on its southern neighbor, a suggestion the Kremlin has dismissed as false. Moscow has in turn accused the United States, NATO and Ukraine of provocative and irresponsible behavior, pointing to U.S. arms supplies to Ukraine, Ukraine's use of Turkish strike drones against Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine, and NATO military exercises close to its borders. Mr. Shoigu said that Moscow had noted a significant increase in the activity by U.S. strategic bombers, which he said had carried out 30 flights close to Russia this month. That, he said, was 2.5 times more than the same period last year. And now a report from the business world.
The Sensex declined 223 points or 0.55% to trade at 58,341. The NSE Nifty also fell 88 points or 0.5% to trade at 17,415. In the global equity market, most of the Asia-Pacific equity indices today finished almost flat. China's Shanghai Composite Index, Singapore's Straits Times and Hong Kong's Hang Seng added up to 0.1%. Japan's Nikkei 225 declined 1.6% and South Korea's Kospi fell 0.1%. European shares were down in the intraday trade. In the intraday trade, trade. Brent crude was trading around $82.20 per barrel. Back home, gold prices fell 35 rupees at the multi-commodity exchange for December contract. The precious metal was trading at 47,490 rupees per 10 grams in the intraday trade. On the other hand, silver gained 20 rupees to 62,530 rupees per kilogram for December contracts when reports last came in. And in the forex market, the rupee appreciated 3 paise against the US dollar. The domestic unit settled at 74 rupees and 40 paise per dollar. Nishit Kumar for World News, All India Radio.
In Indonesia Open in Bali, Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu, Kidambi Srikanth and B Sai Praneeth sailed into the pre-quarters on Wednesday. In women's singles, Sindhu defeated Japan's Aya Ohori 17-21, 21-17, 21-17 in the first round. She will now take on world number 26 Yvonne Lee of Germany in the second round. In men's singles, Sai Praneeth defeated Thomas Junior Popov of France 21-19, 21-18 and Kidambi overcame compatriot HS Pranoy 21-15, 19-21, 21-12. In FIH Odisha Men's Junior Hockey World Cup, defending champions India lost their opening game against France at the iconic Kalinga Stadium in Bhubaneswar tonight. France clinched the opening contest 5-4 in the Group B. The opening quarter saw a couple of goals from each side, but France held the edge by leading 2-4 at half-time. Uttam Singh opened India's scoreline, after which Sanjay converted it to 2-2 in the 15th minute. France's Corentin Cellier quickly converted it to 5-2, but late goals from Sanjay towards the end of the quarter reduced the margin to 4-5. India will next face off Canada in their upcoming contest on November the 27th. Earlier in the day, Belgium had a great start with a 5-1 win over South Africa. Pakistan disappointed as it lost 5-2 to Germany. A total of 16 teams are competing for the prestigious World Cup, who will fight it out till the 5th of next month. After thrashing New Zealand 3-0 in the T20I series, Team India will now host the Black Caps in a 2-match test series. The first test will begin tomorrow at the Green Park Stadium in Kanpur.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Wall Street Journal writes, UN nuclear chief leaves Iran without a deal on factory inspection, diplomats say. The Globe and Mail says, China says it is firmly opposed after US invites Taiwan to its democracy summit. The Guardian reports, China accuses US of mistake after Biden invites Taiwan to democracy summit. Sputnik News writes, Sputnik vaccine for teenagers to be available on international markets, RDIF CEO says. Financial Times writes, Olaf Scholz to become Germany's next chancellor after clinching coalition deal. South China Morning Post reports, China and Russia move closer to de facto military alliance amid US pressure. Khalij Times reports, Dubai airports to reopen Concourse A after 20 months. Tashkent Times says, Uzbekistan is among the countries with positive changes in the field of human rights, UK's Foreign Office report.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India and Asian Development Bank signed $300 million loan to strengthen and improve primary health care in urban areas of 13 states. India and Argentina agreed to broaden cooperation in the field of defense, space, oil, gas and health. Two-day 13th SM Summit to begin virtually on Thursday, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu to lead the Indian delegation. United States includes Taiwan among invitees to its upcoming Democracy Summit. India, UK and Japan also invited for the December 9-10 virtual summit. Sweden's parliament approves Magdalena Andersson's name to become country's first female prime minister. And in badminton, PV Sindhu, Kidambi Srikanth and B Sai Praneeth sail into the pre-quarters of Indonesia Open in Bali. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Barbados. And with that, we end this bulletin. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.